Bevan was arrested by me on request of the station commissioner saying there's a case open, I do not have the case number by the way, where he had threatened to shoot a policeman. The policeman's name was Warrant Officer James. He was working in the one crime prevention unit, but not direct under me. He worked alternative to the group that I was working. And what the station commissioner disclosed to me was that nobody wants to arrest him as to go for him because there was a fear. Sorry, I'm just having water, Chair. So I did a patrol with my team. I looked for Bevan. I couldn't find him. I didn't go into the bluff area, which is like beyond my patrol area when I was at Wentworth. I left it and I said, I'll obviously come across him because he's notorious in the Wentworth area. I was coming from the area which I live. I'm not going to mention it. Before the panel, on the M4 I was heading, and as I came off the M4 into the Wentworth area, there was a patch, where they call it the patch, where I saw these 3 tow trucks parked. I was going to start duty about 10 o'clock in the morning because I used to work a flexi. I was alone. I always worked alone on my vehicle and my members close in other vehicles. And I saw him. I approached him and he knew who I was because they aliased me Robocop in Wentworth. Obviously, I was fully attired when I worked with equipment. But I approached him and I said to him, you're a person of interest. I know that you carry a firearm. I know that you have a licensed firearm. But I need you to make your firearm safe and hand it to me. I'm taking you in. The detectives need to speak to you. He was standing with about 8 guys there, but it's 3 tow trucks. They were smoking whatever under some form of drugs, could have been dacha. I was not interested in that, I was alone. But I managed to apprehend him, place him in my vehicle, front seat, and I drove him to the police station. But I had his firearm with me. It was a 9mm pistol. When I got to the station, I took him straight upstairs, and I informed the station commissioner at the time to please get hold of the investigating officer. He has access on a computer to see who's carrying the docket, because he's an outstanding suspect for intimidation case where he threatened to kill a policeman or warrant officer.
Captain, when you're told that he's notorious and no one wants to arrest him, what was his notoriety? What was said that he's notorious for?
With my short arrival, I would say when I arrived in Wentworth, I had a small team. I had to work for a trusted team. When you say trusted team, I had a small team of 1 female and 4 males. And there were diversity. I had 3 Indian members. I'm going to speak across the race group, young members. I had 1 new constable colored and 1 new female constable. And the 4 were resident Merebank Wentworth. They lived in that community. The female lived in Sydenham. So when I had to familiarize myself with the different territories in Wentworth or the different gangs, they were of much of assistance to me. So I was able to identify quickly which type of gang is operating in which street, because they don't have it's not widespread Durban gang and Maritzburg gang. It's very close. Streets divide the gangs in Wentworth. So just to come back to answer you, Chair, I used to see this guy sitting where the Hollywood gang is, in Woodville Road. Even though I knew that his granny was in Reiger Road. And Reiger Road was where a notorious gang, the Young Destroyers, was from. But he was not sitting with that gang. He was sitting with the Hollywood. And that Hollywood gang was led by a person, I don't know if I should name him, but he's a fugitive at the moment. He's someone that's wanted as a sentenced prisoner. He's sentenced, but he's somewhere on flight. But that's where I would see him sitting. You know, like you'd see these gangsters sitting. And I say, who's this? You know, you look at a face, you say the guy's got an innocent face, but then these young people that say, hey, you know who's this, Cap? This is so-and-so.
I guess my question is you did listen to the previous witness.
Yes, I did.
Is for that. And I'm just trying, when you say he was notorious, I'm trying to understand, notorious that he's a gang member, that he's a drug person, that he has serious criminal allegations against him. I'm just trying to understand what were you told he's notorious for?
Chair, the Hollywood gang is not an honorary gang. And I had a previous witness say it's no more. There's no such, it's no more. This gang was dangerous, just like any gang in Wentworth. They were a fear gang. There was 2 gangs that were opposition, and they took each other out. There were funerals every weekend night to police in Wentworth. Sometimes double, sometimes triple funerals, of ages of youngsters of all kinds. And these gangs were policed harshly by us. When I say harshly, there's some media, obviously, they put when we made arrests and that they actually felt we harassed him, both sides. But when I say notorious, he never moved with a friend that he schooled with. He moved with the head of the Hollywood gang, which is somebody that is running for murder, sentenced already.
Thank you.
So was he notorious by association, not because he was wanted for a particular crime? Because there's a difference. If you say he was notorious because he moved with this gang or that gang or that gang, that's different from saying he's a known killer or he's wanted for committing.
Chair, with the place where he's sitting is not just sitting where you're sitting and having a social. It's a yard that's got about 6 pit bulls. It's got people with unlicensed guns in there. It's got walls about as high as the ceiling. Every time I did a raid there, we had to breach, as in terms of pass the walls and then pass the pit bulls before we get to them. And drugs are sold live as we sit here. Even if you call someone now to say, just go do a live video with us, it's sold live there. So you're not sitting where you're saying you're talking to an ex-gangster or someone's reformed from prison or a school friend. You're sitting right there. So, I don't know if it's correct to say the birds of the feather flock together. How would you label me if I'm sitting in a drug den, if my brother's a drug dealer? You're going to obviously say I'm dealing in drugs. Whether you smoke or you don't, whether you drink or you don't. He's not moving where I say, coincidentally on a sports field, or maybe coming out of a church service or a youth service or a program. You're sitting in a drug den. It's more clearly Hollywood. The shootings happen right there. The killings happen right there. The whole community knows this. Went to this crime. But I've seen this thing. It's like nobody wants to speak about what's happening. But that is what's actually happening. But I know this Bevan is late. He's no more. But Bevan associated himself not with 2 gangs, with 1 gang. He was part of Hollywood. Just to place emphasis on it. Later, I've learned, during my few months left in the police, I've learned about the west side and the east side. And that west side and the east side goes across KZN, maybe South Africa. But just to take it back home domestically, they belong to the west side. So these gangs have expanded, where they say you're either from the west or the east side. You hear these talks, it's like it loses you. I got to keep asking the younger people, hey, what's west side? What's this east side story? And then it comes out, they tell you. So you don't hear this Hollywood, cocktail, young destroyers, the young Americans. You don't hear that. But you'll hear west side. Then you identified as the same kind as me. We're not enemies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. I think you are going to then, because you've dealt extensively with the first encounter, at paragraph 18, you deal with the second encounter with Bevan, where he was a complainant in this instance.
Yes, I went on again. Bevan and his dad are somehow were in business. But Bevan walked into the station and opened a case of theft of motor vehicle.
We all live busy and active lifestyles, and we don't want muscular and body pain interrupting our day. Try Transact.
Bevan and his dad are... Yes, I went on again. So I'm speaking about the blood because you come to a scene and you see blood is starting to dry. It gets a different smell. It gives off a different smell. When I walked in there, I couldn't even smell blood.
From your experience or even information that you may have subsequently obtained, what's your estimation? Are you able to estimate how soon after the shooting incident the call would have come through, the distress call would have come through, and you then end up at the scene? And I ask because the previous witness speaking about task teams said something about often these members of task teams, they take long to inform, to report the incident to IPID, and IPID takes forever. Are you able to give us an estimate?
Chair, I will comment on that because I've been following the commission from day one, not because of this. I never knew I'd be sitting here one day. But just firstly, to answer the first part of your question, how soon? If a distress call is made on the radio to our control room and it's relayed to us, I would say that call could have come very soon after that shoot. If it was delayed by 10, 15 minutes, that blood would have started to dry, although it was winter. With regards to where I'm going to now is what do I do after I confirm that there's a positive shooting? I'm not asking one of the Dina questions, who shot? I now need to call all the role players. What I used to do on a state phone is to put an active crime scene, because it becomes a crime scene. But I chose not to do because now I have different units involved here. It's a task team and it's a variety of members. So I liaised with radio control of the radio and I requested they get all the role players. And the role players I called for was an ambulance. The ambulance will do the certification, even though I knew they were deceased. The patrol van to come open a case. The detectives that are in, we got detectives that sit in the charge office, which attend to crime scene. So you don't need to call a detective from his house 24/7. They're in the station. So as soon as there's a crime scene, they leave the station. They mobilize and leave the station. The duty officer, the station commissioner, and the branch commander. I did not go as far as knowing with ethics, if the provincial commissioner or the district commissioner would be involved, they would be contacted by the station commissioner, who did arrive. But when I arrived there...
What Commissioner Balwa is asking, you were not called by the policemen involved in the shooting.
No, I was
received the call via a distress call where a member of the public would have said there has been
a shooting. That's correct.
Yes, because the earlier witnesses Commissioner Balwa is referring to they were criticized because they would take time before they called other teams to come and assist in the scene. So
Yeah.
you were not called by the shooters? Or
No,
people
I was not
involved in
called by the shooters. I will comment about that with the previous witness, because the role players is also IPID. It's a police shooting. Whether it is a discharge or a dispensing of a stun grenade, IPID gets called out. I want to comment on that because I followed it, and sometimes we go to all post-mortems on what has been said. And I watched this from home yesterday that, firstly, no member that's like me operational with a rifle going to clear a house where there's suspects. No operational member has IPID's number on their phone, speed dial. I secure a state phone, no IPID's number. Even if IPID has contacted me for statements from my members involved with allegations of shooting, assault, corruption, whatever it may be they're investigating. So when you deal with radio control, that controller silences everyone on the radio. That controller extracts your information and makes sure all the role players, they actually go into more detail. What firearm is used? What's the serial number? And then I say, hold the lorry, call me. Because we're speaking where everyone's listening to this. Even if that radio's been scanned, everyone is listening to a shooting scene. So we try and keep it where limited information leaks out where it shouldn't be leaked out, as in terms of who we're calling out, the protocols. So I would say, call me. And I would say, get IPID, get this person, get that person. On the story about not calling IPID, no operative or member, I know all the years in the police, will call IPID out themselves. That has to be done by radio control, or if you've got a VOC in your station, and that VOC's monitoring. Because it's a police shooting, or incident involving escaping or with the police, they will contact IPID. Now, just
Somebody mentioned a duty officer. What is the role of the duty officer in that scenario that you've just described?
The duty officer will come, and he will verify that all his members are there, and he will do a factual, or she will do a factual report on actually what transpired. So we'll come and interview all the role players that were involved at that scene, not necessarily take their statements, and then when they go back to the station and statements are now being confined and placed into the docket, he will do or she will do a final report because they need to escalate everything.
So I interrupted you. Duty officer does not call IPID, so tell us who calls IPID.
The controllers, because their numbers are right there. Intentable one, if I say now there's a shooting here, accidental discharge, it's a police shooting, radio control here in Pretoria will call IPID immediately because if there's omission, you deal with radio control, not the shotters.
So if there's a delay in calling IPID, the fault is not the police officers.
It's not the
on
police.
scene. It is radio control.
Yeah, I just want to tell you the flip side of the coin, Chair. Operationally, I went out from a lot of locations where my members or myself was involved with a shoot, where IPID was under-resourced or couldn't get a vehicle into, let's just say, a 4x4, they had a normal sedan, to get into a rural area or a dangerous, volatile area, where we will go and uplift them, meet them halfway in a safe place and bring them into the crime scene. That's also a delay. But realistically speaking, my experiences, and this is the truth, it's gospel, when it comes to IPID, they don't attend all scenes. So when IPID is contacted, it's like contacting fingerprints or forensics. There's a reference number that's given. So if the standby member does not come out because of a logistical problem, because they overslept or they didn't answer their phone, then there's a reference number given. That reference number is given to the duty officer. And it's endorsed in the docket, because when we sit as management the next morning and we're discussing the cases, not just that particular case, we say there was a police shooting, well, all role players there. The detectives go, they must come in. Did the LCRC come there? That's a fingerprint, forensic people, yes. How long did the motor take? Because they dispatched from Peter Maritzburg to come to Durban. All those things get accounted for. So if IPID didn't come, then it's endorsed in the investigation diary. IPID did not attend. They could come 2 days or 3 days later and come sign for the docket and take the docket away.
Thank you, Captain. We've digressed a bit, so maybe you can go back to your statement.
Thanks, sir.
Sorry, Commissioner Baloyi, just on that point, just to wrap it up, is it a fair understanding of your testimony that if there is an expectation or a policy that the shootist ought to call IPID immediately, that is not realistic? And if this commission was to consider some of the reforms is to deal with some of those issues, that is not what actually happens in reality, that the shootist will be the one who calls IPID to come to attend to the scene. Is that a fair understanding of your...
No. It's not, the onus is not upon the shotters. I stick by that. There are role players at that scene to make sure, but when the distress call goes out to radio control, the transcripts are there. They inform, contact IPID. And if IPID has been delayed, they will reiterate and say, please call IPID out to the scene. The scene cannot, no police shooting, no escaping, IPID has to be there. We'll go without IPID being there.
So in short, that expectation is not correct there?
It's not correct for the shotters to call. Onus is not upon them.
All right, thank you. Captain, I think you dealt with, when you're dealing with Commissioner Baloyi, when it comes to Ryan, can you deal with then paragraph 17 and 18? Because you said you were able to identify Bevan Loftus. Can you then explain to the Commission how were you able to identify him? And in those instances, you deal with the incidences where you have met him previously. Can you deal with that, please?
Commissioner, in 2010, when I was based between 2010 and 15 in Durban, in Durban South at Wentworth, the late Bevan Loftus was a notorious figure already. The station commissioner at the time I was serving, coincidentally, was my station commissioner at Mayville when I arrived there for those few months. He was a Colonel Panzai, which was studying his LLB, and once he achieved it, he had taken early pension or resigned. But coincidentally, he got promoted to a full colonel, and he was moved to Wentworth as the station commissioner. So when I had taken up a post, I ended up working under my ex-station commissioner, which I served for 8 months. So there was a relationship. When I arrived, he said immediately, I know you know what you do in Houston. This is your team. Fix this gangsterism thing up that's happening. Fix this problem. That's how we spoke at the management level in absence of our members. So I would strategize how we would go, either doing road shows or doing proactive policing or reactive policing, whatever we did to improve the situation. But coming back to how I could identify Bevan, 6 around about then, on the 1st of April, 2023, at 13:20, I was at Ridge Road, Bria, when I received a call via our radio-controlled flying squad. I was shooting at 3:40, the 6th floor Morningside flat, which I immediately proceeded to whilst I was patrolling. To give you timelines of driving normal, I was never a speed driver. I always took a slower vehicle, gave it to the younger people. It would take me under 5 minutes with normal traffic to get there. That's how close I was to this particular scene. After receiving this information, I arrived at the scene. I en route summoned one of my crime prevention vehicles with a senior warrant officer. With his crew, he had 3 members on a double cab. I said, please meet me because I'm responding to a possible shooting, which he did. And upon arrival at this particular address, I drove down a driveway which had boom gates as well as a guardhouse. And in this guardhouse was a Sergeant Swane, and coincidentally, I knew him for many years as a policeman. He also worked in a short time at Mayville under my command in the crime prevention, so I was able to identify him. He was in the guardhouse with 2 security guards. And I asked him what's going on, because from the road or from the driveway, we could not see anything in that flat. It's a long driveway going down, and then it's L-shaped to go into the building. And he confirmed that there is an operation and there is a positive shooting.
Captain, sorry to disturb you. Just to be clear, when you received this radio control call, there has been some instances where it was suggested that it was a domestic violence. On your call, can you clarify, it was a shooting? Or was it even specific to say it was a police shooting? Or what exactly did you, if you can recall?
No, clearly it was a police shooting. I would have not responded to domestic violence with the type of job I was doing in Durban Central. I would have only responded, but I remember clearly it was a shooting. Nothing about domestic violence came to me.
Thank you.
Just to mention, before I went in, the vehicle that I was driving was a marked double Nissan Navara double cab, the registration, Bravo Whiskey Kilo. That's BWK 575B. The 17 must come out there. Sorry, it's 557B. The registration's wrong.
557B.
7B.
7B, so not 5757.
No.
Okay, I will correct on my statement. You can also
I already picked it up now, I'm sorry, Chair. The
That's
registration
fine.
number.
Yeah.
So it's the incorrect one.
No, we've corrected that.
Okay. I asked Zwane to accompany me into the complex. I drove my van, and I'm sure as seen on TV, those who have seen, there was only one police van that was parked there, marked vehicle in that flat. That was the vehicle I was driving. There was not a police cars where I was parked, or police vehicles. It was load shedding, Chair, at the time, so when I got out of the vehicle and tried to maneuver quickly to the lifts to get up, because I was looking up into the building where there was movement of members, the lifts were jammed, so we had to use the staircase to get up. So I had to walk 4 to 5 flights of stairs up, which wasn't a problem, but I walked up. Upon arriving at the flat entrance, the flat is L-shaped, if I should describe it. I walked in the direction that I'm facing, this way, straight down, then I walked L-shaped. The flat was right on the end. When I got there were a few members standing outside, plain clothes, faces cladded, and I was approached by Captain Dina Governor, who is now Lieutenant Colonel. I know him, he knows me, because they have also received weapon training from me. I trained them, DPCI, when they were still the Scorpions, they came for the training from me. So I told him I was there because of the shooting. He's aware that I'm operational command in Durban, and I said I would like to go in just to verify what's actually happening. Whilst we conversed, and he allowed me to walk in.
Sorry, before you get there, Captain, was it your understanding that at least the first person that approached you, did it appear that he was the leader of the team?
Yes.
Okay.
He was the leader of the team. I knew the team.
Okay.
I knew the team.
And when you say there were 5 other members, can you recall their names?
I know the members. There was I may not know the members off name, the two NIU members. There were two members from NIU, National Intervention. There was a Captain China that I saw there from Metro, a warrant officer Silver, and one of Sadina. There could have been, I did see Pedro. At that time, I think he was a warrant officer, recently promoted, I think, after this. But I saw him, and I saw one white other member, which was unknown to me. But I eventually found out later he was from organized crime, Peter Maritzburg. But they were all up there. Just to indicate the entrance of the flat, I had a little passageway that you needed to get to the door. They had a piece of tape there. And on request to Captain Dina Governor to allow me in, which he did, I was stopped by one of the Silver. He asked me where I'm going to and what am I doing. And not to get into any arguments with him, one of the Captain Dina Governor said, it's fine. The captain will be able to identify these people. I think that statement was made because they knew I worked on the south. They knew where I came from training, and I've only been in this province with policing, so it was common course I would know most of the people like they would know me in the Durban area. I walked through...
Captain, just so before you walked into the flat, is it a fair interpretation to say that conversation would have alluded to a suggestion at least that they did not know the identity of the people that were shot?
I would think so. I would think so because it was strange. One of Sadina's body language was like, quick, I let the captain through. You'll be able to identify. I think he tried to justify, this is Captain Dina Governor, tried to justify to one of the civil who was coming out from there. The captain will be able to identify. I think that's the only reason what justified him. So, okay, you can go through. Otherwise, maybe I would have had a problem, but I would have been persistent because I was the first responder there. I was responding to the shooting. So I walked through and led by Captain Dina Governor. As I entered the flat, the door was slightly ajar. As I entered the flat, I saw the deceased laying on the floor, and I walked down further, and to the right, which was like blind side of the passage that I entered, there were the other four deceased were laying there. I was able, with a quick glance, a very short while, stay in the flat because I did not want to contaminate anything. I knew it's a scene of crime. I'm just going to confirm, look in, and I'm going to recheck. But with that, I had moved my eyes around the flat quickly. It's my first time going in here. I looked at it and I then went through. But I made out or identified 2 of the 5 males. I identified the late Bevan Loftus, and I identified the second male, which I knew as Ryan. I don't know his surname. If I hear it, I'll say it is his. I didn't know his surname, but I knew him from social media and from a lot spoken on the streets. I saw a video of him shooting on his wedding day with an AK-47 on social media. Just which platform it is, it popped up on the TikTok. I'm only on WhatsApp and TikTok. I'm not on Facebook, Instagram, and all these other things. So I wondered who is this guy, and there's the same guy that was lying in the flat.
In the statement, you say Ryan Santos.
Yeah, I would have confirmed by making my statement because I made my statement recently, but at that time, I only knew him as Ryan. Yes. I didn't know him by surname. When I came out...
Before you go out, Captain, you say in paragraph 16, you confirm that 5 males were shot dead. And perhaps it's a pedantic question, but how do you know that they were dead? Did you check the pulse?
The damage done there's no way of survival. Everyone had headshots. Leave the body shots. I know exactly the killing spot on your body. So, as a weapon expert, I'm saying this as a shot test me. I know exactly where to kill you, the killing shots went to. So, they all had headshots. So I didn't even scrutinize the bodies. There was no need. Whether they were shot 5 times, once, or 3 times, but they were deceased. These guys were gone. I got there, Chair, I want to mention, I got there very quickly, and I would say so from my experience in terms of the blood splatter, or the spilling, or the bleeding of the deceased. It hadn't even settled. The blood was still very fresh. It hadn't even started to dry. So that's how quick I was at that scene. When I say quick, I could have been, if I were to use my experience going to shootings in progress in the CBD, which I did cash in transits, I done shootings in taxi ranks where it's still happening, I can hear the shots. I would have been there within easier than half an hour, the most. In fact, half an hour would have taken me from Beaven to Maritzburg driving normal. But I would have been there within minutes after I got the call. So whoever raised the alarm to 10-111 with the complaint, those shots, that is a shooting, that is when I immediately said I'm going. And I broke on the radio and called one of my bands to say, back me, we got a positive shooting.